Hey everyone, my name is Ben Chaish, and today we are going to be talking about maybe the best 50mm lens and maybe the best lens in existence. You can be the judge and definitely leave the comments below if you think that I am off my rocker, but that is the Leica APO Summicron-SL 50mm f2 spherical lens. For a quick kind of background and disclaimer, this camera, this lens, and all of the SL stuff that I've been reviewing and looking at were on loan to me by KEH Camera. I don't get to keep them. They didn't pay me to do these videos. I'm just doing these videos because I personally am really interested in this stuff, and I figure a lot of you out there might be as well. And so since I had the gear in hand, I'm trying to make as many of these videos as I possibly can. And for those who might be new to the channel, I've been a wedding photographer for about 15 years now, and I'm very well acquainted with the 50mm focal length and have probably used anywhere between like 10 and 20 different 50mm lenses in my time. And I think I own actually about 10 different 50mm equivalent lenses currently. And as a wedding photographer who uses those for thousands and thousands of photos, that's at least where I'm coming from. Now this lens, as well as I believe most of the other Summicron-SL lenses, is a 67mm filter thread, and they are roughly all the same size, which clearly when you hold the camera and the lens together, you can see that they are a very good fit. And the lens isn't that thick, which when kind of pairing with this body that is a little bit larger, makes carrying this kind of a joy. It has a single focus ring, that's it, which feels fantastic. It has a single marking, which says 50mm. Then it has some of the regulatory jazz and then says Leica camera Wetzlar, made in Germany. And that's it. You definitely get the serial number of the lens, as well as, you know, it says Leica E67, APO Summicron-SL, f2 50mm spherical, and again, that's it. It is very unobtrusive. Now, pairing this lens with the SL2S is something that I brought to a wedding that I photographed about a month ago now. It was definitely an absolute joy to use, and it does make me wonder how the rest of the Summicron SL lenses both perform and feel, as I believe that, you know, they're mostly the same size. And so I could definitely see as a wedding photographer really loving this setup in particular. Now, like most everything Leica, these lenses are incredible, but do come at a cost. As I'm currently looking at prices on this, it's $5,095, which pairing this with the body puts this kit, which is one of the more inexpensive kits you can put together in the Leica SL system, over $10,000. So it's definitely not for the faint of heart or someone that is on a budget. Now, in terms of using this lens in practice, I feel like the focus for what this is in a contrast detect body was pretty snappy and pretty reliable in general. I find that 50mm is usually a pretty standard lens for just generally getting a good focus out of a camera. It's not too telephoto, it's not too wide where it's gonna be hunting. And generally, there's not a ton of glass to move in here. So that being said, for the focus system that this body kind of encapsulates, I feel like it was a good performer from the lens. I could definitely see a future body with a more phase detect autofocus system being a lot faster, and I don't think the lens is what's keeping the body from focusing faster. And then moving on to if you are going to manually focus this at all, it feels absolutely fantastic. It's definitely easy to move without being kind of cumbersome and too fast or too slow. You know, when you move it stops, but it's not hard to turn. And as you can see, as you move it, all of the focusing is internal. So you don't really have any issue with the lens moving or protruding or anything like that. And honestly, in photo and video, both in autofocus and in manual focus, it was just a joy to use. And then in practice, pairing it with this body right here was fantastic. I feel like It is small enough that it balances really, really well on this. And I actually had it around my neck using one of the Clever Supply Co. straps with Peak Design hardware, so I could, kind of take it on and off pretty easily. Honestly, it felt pretty good for being such a large camera and lens combo. And again, in terms of resolution and sharpness, this lens is fantastic. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It is by far one of the best lenses that I have ever used in terms of sharpness, in terms of just overall image quality. I never had an issue where I had to adjust for chromatic aberration. There wasn't a ton of vignetting or anything like that. The sharpness was absolutely on point. And while a lens like this that you are looking for as close to perfection as you could get, you might just think it's going to be clinical garbage, but the character and everything out of it still was absolutely fantastic. Honestly, I couldn't really be any more impressed with this lens in those terms. Comparing it to my beloved 50 Summilux M, it kind of started to make me sad because that lens isn't like the sharpest thing in the entire world, but it is very, very sharp and then has an amazing amount of character. But seeing what a 50mm lens that is made for sharpness and resolution and everything can do was maybe the first time I've ever felt like my 50 Summilux was at all inadequate. The 50mm is just so dang versatile, and the experience out of it, while obviously not even in the realm of shallow depth of field, made me feel a lot like the GFX system on my GFX 50S. The resolution and everything that you get out of the files here, even at 24 megapixels, feels much more medium format in terms of the actual resolving power and sharpness that you get out of it. So the thing I've been asking myself now that I have to send all this stuff back to KEH is, what am I gonna do now with this knowledge of the SL2 system and specifically this 50mm? Because there has been a lot of stuff that I've used on this channel, but not a lot of stuff that I've considered selling multiple other cameras and lenses to acquire. And the SL2S with the 50 APO Summicron-SL is definitely one of those combos. I don't know if I'll ever ditch my M system, but having a 50 Summicron-SL and a 28 Summicron-SL on a pair of SL2S bodies is definitely something that I have been sort of trying to mentally justify since I have had these cameras in for the last month. If you liked this video, please give it a like. It definitely helps the channel. You can subscribe right here if you haven't already. You can support me on Patreon right here, or learn more and get more educational content right there. And then you can check out one of these videos that is most likely very related to this one.